C++ newbie habits. Okay, I'm pretty sure I will have no newbie habits. How many newbie habits do you think you will have, guys? You gotta fail 80% of this, Cakes? Absolutely not. Me, 0. Can we get a noob counter? There we go. Noob counter. On the top. Number 1, using one file for everything. All right, so newbie habits. Let's see.
Hello and welcome to my list of newbie C++ habits. C++ is an incredibly complex language with a lot of history. So whether you're an actual noob that really needs to look out for these things,
like chat,
or whether you just want to improve your code a little bit, let's get started. Newbie thing number 1, using namespace standard.
I don't use the standard library, so I can't actually have this in my code. Passed.
People generally use it to save typing, so you can say things like string instead of std:.
But you put the entire standard library into your scope, and then you can have naming issues.
And colon string. If it's limited to just a single function, that might not be that bad. But let's be honest, it's usually used at the global level.
Yep.
Even worse, if you do this in a header file, then you also force this choice upon everyone that uses your code.
Yep.
So please don't do this in a header file. And also consider just...
we should say why though, because using namespace means, let's say the standard library has a bunch of function names, and then it uses all of those function names in your space. And then you want to define a new function name, you might get collisions there.
Just using the names that you actually use. Number 2, using standard endline, especially in a loop. You probably...
I don't use the standard library, and therefore I don't use std endline. Okay.
Meant to just print out a new line, but endline does more than that. It also flushes the buffer, which takes extra
This guy's cheating. Ah, who's mad right now? Who's mad?
time. Instead, just use a new line character. Number 3, using a for loop by index when a range-based for loop expresses the intent better.
Dude, like I don't have any other way to do that. +1. I see what he means, but I can't actually do this. Certified noob. Iterators help with out of bounds checks, so +1. In my defense, okay, I don't have an operator to do a range-based for loop, and therefore I can't actually do it. +1 for this explanation. No.
In this case, I don't really care at all about the index. Instead, use a range-based for loop. There's no index, so one less chance for an accidental typo or off by 1 error. Number 4, using a loop when a standard algorithm already exists to do what you're trying to do.
Const std vector data, size t first position index. Who does that? I'm pretty sure chat does this all the time. You guys can say it. You use this. If data is greater than 0, first position index. Yeah. Counter ++. No. Standard library. No. This is literally an advertisement for standard library. No, that's not the point of what he's saying. So he's saying that in order to find number 8, I should not use a for loop, but I should use an algorithm. And
there's
that would be
some simple thing that you want to do, like find the index of the first positive number in a vector. It's so simple though, you decide to just write it.
But if you don't use vector, it's not a mistake, because I use my own. Actually, this is not a counter ++, because I do have contains. Ha! You're wrong. I do have this function, so I don't get a ++. You're wrong. I have contains. Ha! Why not use standard library? It's here for you. Because I don't know what it does behind my back and I would like to learn. Linear search cringe. Linear search cringe.
Instead, consider if there's an algorithm that already does what you're trying to do.
Just
in this case, we can use standard.
True. Travis Roman says just use C. Exactly.
Find if to find where the first positive element is. Number 5, using a C-style array when you could have used a standard array.
This guy is advertising for the standard library. I don't like this guy. No, I don't like him. No, he's forcing his standard library shit on me. No, I don't like it. Okay, what about the compilation time of the standard library, huh? File system taking almost 5 seconds to compile? Anyone? Anything? No? Ah, okay. No one cares about compile time here. I'm writing my own engine. I don't use my engine's own style. I do use my engine's own standard library. True, true. You can write your own array type. I did. So this is not a +1 for me because I have my own array type then. True. True.
C-style arrays often decay into pointers and require you to pass the length of the array along with the array itself. This is just another opportunity to make a typo. Instead, use a standard array.
Or make your own array.
Number 6, any use of reinterpret cast. Pretty much.
I use C-style casts, so not a +1 for me.
The only thing you're allowed to do with an object that you got from reinterpret cast is to reinterpret cast it back to the original type. Almost everything else is undefined behavior. And yes, the same goes for C-style casting.
No. If I turn a float into an int, I cut off the decimal part. No, not a ++. I just don't agree.
Travis Roman, help me out here, man. Why should I use C-style casts? I need your help, bro. You are more like 5-edge. Come on, bro. Tell them why they're wrong, please.
That's an insta +10. Absolutely not. Guys, Travis Roman is gonna tell you why this is not right. C-style casts are unsafe and don't do any sanity check. Hello, Mr. Cakez. How are you doing? It's been a long time. See you. Hey, Robert Nutzstar, long time. Yeah. Thanks for joining, bro. Lol, no pressure, right? Sorry, famous Quake in verse square root. So here's why I don't like this. Games are being made in C nowadays as well. In C, I only have reinterpretation casts. I use C, not any of this rubbish. C-style casts for me all the day long. No, I don't do +1. Like, you guys can use your imaginary +1 counter, but I think this is wrong.
So sorry, famous Quake 3 algorithm for computing the inverse square root.
Who's this guy anyways, telling people, no, it's not a +1, guys. You are using C-style for laziness or practical reasons? Practical reasons, readability. In my opinion, this is just terrible to read. Instead of just doing, it's readable as fuck? No, it's not. What are you talking about?
Interpreting the bytes of a float as a long is actually undefined behavior. You're always allowed to reinterpret cast the address of an object as a character type. This allows you to inspect or print out the bytes that make...
So here's what I think. If I turn it into a float, that's fine. Whether that is a C-style cast or a reinterpret cast or whatever, STD cast, I think that's fine. If I take a void pointer or a character pointer and reinterpret cast that to a byte array, that's also fine. So for example, if I read a file, I turn that into a character pointer, whether that is STD byte or character, it doesn't matter. I think that's fine too. So I don't see how that would be undefined behavior because you're literally reading a string of bytes.
Up the object so you can see its memory layout. However, as of C++20, this use of reinterpret cast is also not necessary. Bitcast interprets the bytes of one object as a different type. In this case, I can cast any object to an array of bytes of the same size. Number 7, casting a...
No, I just don't agree. I hate C++ cards because they're long as names, so I just use a macro. I try to minimize warnings, that's all. If it's always wrong, it wouldn't be there in the first place. Like what people say about goto, it's a tool that that's there to be used for a reason. Yes, it's a tool, exactly. That's how I see it. Reinterpret cast has some good uses. For example, you can read a vector 4 as a vector 3 by reinterpreting the first data member. Okay, let's see what he has to say here. Unordered map, std string, word counts, std string, word 1, more frequent.
Number 7, casting away const.
I don't do that, but const is annoying to use sometimes, yes. You don't foresee that you are going to use const or not use const, and then you have to find a way to either in the entire const chain, don't use const at all, or, sometimes people cast away const,
This function takes in a map that maps string.
And I do use const. There you go. Const, stat to string, type from a stat to string array, which is also const. Started to use const, not a noob, by the way. I'm not a noob. Nope.
To the number of...
You think he will read that? You should know better. You are not new here. You are wrong, man. GitHub. What is strict aliasing rule and why do we care? Odd type punning, undefined behavior and alignment. Oh my. What is strict aliasing? First we need to describe... Is it long? It's very long, bro. It's very long. Okay, we can read this some other time. You think you will read that? You should know better. You're not new. I tried to read this and the size of that scroll bar intimidates me. It's too small. Anyways,
this function takes in a map that maps strings to the number of times that they've occurred. It takes 2 words and then returns back to you whichever one has a higher count. The first way you might try to implement this is by looking up the counts of the 2 words, and then if the first count is bigger than the second, then returning the first word. If I try to compile this, I get a weird error message telling me that the method isn't marked const. And that's how we ended up with this code. I know that I'm not modifying.
Auto const counts reference const cast unordered map string. Why would you do this? Because the original function here is marked const. This operator here is not const because this array is not const. Oh god, just so we can use the operator. Yeah.
Modifying the map, right? The correct thing to do in this case is not to cast away const, but to instead use the at method. At is a const version of operator square bracket that throws if the word isn't in the map.
And word counts adds it because it's modifying it and therefore it's a reference. It's essentially modifying word counts, and since word counts is const here. Oh god, okay. I don't use this,
but you might ask, why don't they just add a const version so that this would compile?
Yeah.
This brings us to newbie thing number 8, not knowing that operator square brackets inserts the element into the map if it doesn't already exist. That's right, simply trying to look up this word in the map actually inserts it with a count of 0 into.
I would argue that this behavior is hidden behavior. I would like to have an add function to add something to word counts. It's in the documentation here, but that's what I mean. It doesn't tell you. You didn't know that? It doesn't matter. I don't use it. It's how many things you use. Just need to use it once and you know it. It's not hidden. I knew it. Yeah, you knew it, but not because you read the documentation, right? Because you used it and then you realized that it's in there. Like what WhatsApp said. If you don't like it, just make your own unordered map. True. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I don't use unordered map. Oh man, I'm gonna get so many negative people on the comments saying like, oh, your counter should be like 10, should be like 20.
To the map. Number 9, ignoring const correctness. This function loops over a vector, simply printing out each element, one element per line.
Yeah.
It doesn't modify the vector.
Yeah.
So we could and should mark the vector const. This is doubly important for a function parameter so that the...
Fine, I don't use const correctness in my... Yeah, we can add that here. It's fine. I'm trying to figure out where to best use const correctness, and obviously I'm all over the place with it at the moment. So there you go. You happy, guys? We have two counts.
Caller knows that they can use this function without their vector being modified. Number 10, not knowing about string literal lifetimes. String literals like this one are guaranteed to live for the entire life of a...
Oh no, I know why. That's not actually the reason. So he's not explaining this, but this string literal always lives for the entire lifetime of the program because it's getting allocated in the static memory of your executable. So every executable has a list of strings that is usually in memory, one after another, a list of string literals that is basically in the executable, in the data. So if you have a bunch of string literals in your code, the executable's file size will get larger. So they are always allocated. Yeah. And you're literally just... You're returning the address to the data in the file of the executable
program. So it's perfectly fine to return this even though it looks like it's a reference to a local variable. Number 11, not using structured bindings. Here we have a map.
Structured bindings? What is that? Unordered map, string, colors. Red to this, green to this, blue to this. Pair colors. std out, name, pair first, pair second, hex.
So color names to their hex values.
Yeah.
Then we just loop over all the pairs and print out the name and hex value. It would be a lot more readable if we could refer to these things as name and hex rather than pair.first and pair.second.
So is he creating a struct and then making an array of those?
Well, that's exactly what a structured binding lets us do.
A structured, okay, I don't use this, so... I don't know, can I really increase the counter here? I don't use std unordered maps. I use arrays. So mostly I can accomplish everything with arrays.
Grab the pair by reference. Then the structured binding introduces name and hex as names for the first and second.
But I can see why this is a good idea, because you should always be explicit as to what it is you're using, and therefore it is much easier to use namings than first and second. Exactly, it makes the code more readable. That's a good
elements of
thing.
the pair. Structured bindings can also be used with your own types if the members are public. The names get assigned to the variables according to the order of their declarations. Number 12, using multiple out parameters when you want to return multiple things from a function. Instead,
I would use a return value, essentially, unless he has a boolean here, void. I would just return a structure then.
using multiple out parameters when you want to return multiple things from a function. Instead, create a basic struct and give those things names. Then you can return the multiple values that you wanted
I do that.
to by returning the struct instead. The caller can even make it look like it was multiple values returned by using structured bindings.
Okay.
13, doing work at runtime that could have been done at compile time.
The sum of limit, sum of 1 to n.
Here's a function that gives the formula for the sum of the first n integers.
Okay.
Sometimes the parameters
Should this be a macro?
might be known at compile time, and you could do the calculation ahead of time. Go ahead and let the compiler know that it's totally fine to
Const expression. Okay, so I would use a macro, but it looks like if you use const expression as the function, this would be compiled into the code right here. So literally this stuff would be happening here if this is not a if this is not a runtime variable. In this case, const limit is a compile time variable, and therefore this can also be done at compile time. Interesting.
compute this ahead of time. Number 14, forgetting to mark destructors virtual. If a derived
I don't use destructors, so
class gets deleted through a pointer to this base class, then the derived class destructor will not be called. Only the base class's destructor will be called. Here I have a class that derives from the base that doesn't have a virtual destructor. This function expects a pointer to the base class. It uses some base functionality and then deletes the pointer when it's done. This will happen automatically since I'm using a unique pointer, but the same would be true if you just took in a normal pointer and then manually called delete. If you pass a pointer to an instance of this derived type, then the wrong destructor gets called at the end. To make sure the correct destructor is called even through a pointer to a base class, you need to mark the function virtual. It's also good practice to explicitly mark the derived class's destructor as override. Number 15, thinking that
I don't use classes, I don't use shared pointers, I don't use constructors, and I don't use destructors. So essentially, I love C++, guys. I love it. Okay, what do we have here?
the class members are initialized in the order they appear in the initializer list.
Yeah.
Reading left to right, this looks fine.
Yeah.
The actual order that members are initialized in is the order that they're declared in. First, we initialize end as start plus size, but this mstart is garbage. It hasn't been initialized yet. We can, of course, fix this by declaring start first instead. Or since start is also a parameter to the function, we could just define the end variable in terms of the start parameter. 16, not realizing that
I don't use constructors, so... Cakez avoids newbie behaviors by not using large parts of C++. Exactly. That's how you avoid it. True. Valid strategy.
there's a difference between default and value initialization. X and X2 are default initialized. They contain garbage.
It depends on the compiler, but yes, this is garbage initialized, so the memory might not be cleared. This one too.
Until you put something into them.
Yep.
Y, Y2, and Y3 are value initialized. They are guaranteed to contain the value 0. Z, on the other hand, is neither default nor value initialized. This is a function declaration. Even if it's a tiny bit less efficient, initializing your values is almost always a good idea. The same kind of thing goes if
I like doing this to display data that I want to have as default data, because I don't use constructors. For example, yeah, let's use the projectile here. Like the sprite, impact effects, abilities, type. This stuff just makes sense. So for example, I could say that, well, this is a sprite. Like by default, it's an arrow. And then I usually like looking at this data to figure out what is the default data. It's really nice to deal with this.
you have an aggregate or array type. In the first two cases, N and M will be garbage and S will be the empty string. In the last three cases,
So he assumes that this is garbage initialized, and you guys are saying that this is wrong. Default initialized is garbage initialized. Test it and go bold. Okay, let's test it and go bold. Do we use MSVC? X here. Okay, let's see. Cakez is pretty? Cakez actually sucks? Huh? Where's this coming from? Huh? Int penis? Compilation failed. Where is this coming from? Ah. Can I type here, please? What the fuck? Bro, this right here, and then I guess noob mistakes dot a is 10. Uninitialized local variable used. Warning. You're using the ARM compiler? Really? Oh yeah, I am. Thank you. MSVC. There you go. That's the latest one. Thank you. Compiler returned 0. Guys, we're getting issues here. We can't do this because of the warning. Click the output button, click execute code. Middle tab, top left. Execute the code. Noob mistakes. Yeah. So it is garbage initialized. Yes. So what I do always in my game is this. I initialize it. And then it is always 0 initialized. Yeah, 0. That's what I do. So essentially, what he's trying to say in the video is, and so he's right in the video, first and foremost. So he's right in the video, but I always do the bracket initialization. Honestly, failing at basic goat bolt should increase the counter by 10. I don't use goat bolt because I just write code, bro. Okay, so I do use this, the default initialization. I use that, essentially.
N and M are 0, and S is the empty string. Notice that even with default initialization, the empty string did still get initialized. That's because for both default and value initialization, if you define a default constructor, it will be called. 17. Overuse of magic numbers. Introducing a...
Oh shit! Sorry.
N and M will be called. 17. Overuse of...
Come on, right? I mean, I do use some. He's right there. Like stuff like this. For UI, I use a lot of magic numbers. But it's a game, you know? Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, for example, here, speed. Magic number of 200. This is particular to this wind/slash ability. No excuses, Cakez, Kana++. When it comes to game dev, magic numbers aren't that bad. Yeah, I'm reluctant, but I guess I'll give you this one because, like, yeah, fine. It's 3, fine.
Magic numbers. Introducing a...
I think... So you can use floats, I guess, yeah.
Basic constant in your code can make it many times more readable.
I think in games it's not that bad because in games you oftentimes have very specific things happening. Fine, you get it. You get the point, it's okay.
The compiler's going to optimize it away
+1.
anyway, just give it a good name. 18. Attempting to add or remove elements from a container while looping over it.
Ooh.
Well, doing that is something...
I do that a lot, but I do this with my own types, so I think it's fine. No, like, guys, I do this with my own types, so I know what's happening. Let's first hear his explanation.
Sometimes just necessary, but what I mean is noobs often do it incorrectly. We're trying to put a...
Incorrectly, you can do it incorrectly, yeah.
Copy of the vector at the end of...
See, they are doing it like this. See, this is why you use ranged-based for loops. Or is it... No, what is the other name? Not range-based for loops? This is why you use these types of for loops. In combination with removing an index and swapping, that works. Because then you can go back one step and continue looping. So I don't think I should do a +1 here, guys.
The vector. Adding or removing an element to the vector may invalidate the iterators to the vector.
Yep.
For example, pushback might need to resize the vector and move all the elements to a new location.
Yeah, that's true. So that's how vectors work. When you grow the size of a vector and you have reached the limit of the vector, it will create a new vector in a different memory location, then copy over all of the elements from the previous vector into the new vector, and then add the elements to the new vector. So you have a mismatch of memory locations there.
After moving the contents of the vector to a new location, you can't expect the end pointer to be the same.
Yep.
You would run into the exact same issue. In fact, it's probably clearer why you would run into this issue if you used iterators directly. This is a case where using a loop index actually does solve the problem.
I said that! Oh my god, what did I just say? Oh! Let's hear this again.
Iterators directly. This is a case where using a loop index actually does solve the problem.
Aha! Told you guys, you're noobs. I told you, you're noobs. I know what I'm talking about because I'm big C++ programmer. See, like 18, 19 issues, right? Counter 3. Write your own container with iterators, you'll know. It depends on the container. I'm 10x your programming skills. No, you're wrong. You get banned. See you in 5 minutes. You're lying.
It doesn't matter if the contents of your vector get moved somewhere else. The ith element is still the ith element. Number 19, returning a moved local variable. I
never used std_move. I actually don't even know what this does. So you could say that I am a noob when it comes to std_move, but I don't use it, so I don't make this mistake.
Get where you're coming from. A vector can be a large object, and you don't want to make a copy of it. So you go ahead and try to move it out. If you had just tried to return v directly, there would have been no copy and no move.
Okay, even if you...
copy the construct.
Vector is just a construct.
The compiler can't do return value optimization. In all cases, the move is unnecessary. The compiler always knows that it can move a local variable.
So fine, guys, I'll give you this point because I don't know std_move at all. Fine, you guys are happy. I actually have no clue what std_move even does.
In some cases, this actively prevents return value optimization. So that's why this
No, ... Okay, so what does it do? What does std_move do? You know what, guys? It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. I just won't understand std_move, okay? I think my C way of thinking about it with the stack and the heap and having a struct on the stack and a struct on the heap is much easier. So you get the point, you know, noob counter +1, it's fine. Okay, I'm not gonna try to understand std_move. I get that this would probably invalidate this vector, make a new vector without copying the data. So basically it references the heap memory here, but creates a new counter, a new maximum, stuff like that. Whatever.
One of the few rules where I can say you should just never do this. Which brings us to number 20, thinking that move actually moves something. Here is an implementation.
Fine, we get a new counter. Nice language, bro. Another counter. Okay, std_move doesn't move.
Of standard move.
It's a great name, by the way.
Full templated definition might be a bit much to take in all at once.
Yeah.
So let's take a look just at the int case. Move takes in an int L value reference, static casts it to an R value reference, and returns it. The exact same thing happens in the R value overload.
Can someone please explain to me why you need that? Like, please, just explain to me. Why would I ever move an int? It doesn't compute in my head, man. It just gives me headaches. Why the fuck don't I just return the int? Bro? Like, what is going on? For int, it makes no difference. But counterpoint, it needs to be short. I don't understand it either, and I'm a 10x programmer, so don't worry. The explanations are shit. Maybe the example is not good. Maybe we need to have a better example. Okay, fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm a noob when it comes to this. Noob counter ++. It's fine.
It just static casts to an R value and returns it. A more accurate name for move is probably something like cast to R value. Number 21, thinking that evaluation order is guaranteed to be left to right.
Wait, is that a new person here? Is this guy new? Good morning. Thinking that evaluation order is not guaranteed. String, but I have heard it works even if you don't believe in it. Replace std_find even for string.find even. Replace that with only, which is 1 second, sorry. What? Okay, I'm back, guys. Cakez, my grandma has a NOOB counter of 0. She never used any C++, but you used the same argument. Shut the fuck up, bitch. All right. What was this? I don't even understand what this.
Here's a famous example.
Yeah.
We have a string that says, but I've heard it works even if you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
We replace the first 4 characters with the empty string. Then we find even and replace it with only. Then we find don't and delete it.
Yeah.
With this reasoning, we should end up with, I've heard it works only if you believe in it. But prior to C++ 17, the compiler is actually allowed to compute any sub-expression in any order. So theoretically, it could...
Oh, it's the dot. So I see. If you use C++ specifically and you use dot and then another dot, it's like this typical syntax that you see in programming languages like JavaScript. Dot response, dot final, stuff like that. Prior to 17, yeah. Return this.
Find the location of even first, and then replace the first 4 characters, making that location off by 4.
I don't use this either, man. Like, I'm not going to increase my counter for this. I don't use this.
So then when the second replace happens, it would replace these 4 characters with only. And you can see how this goes on. You don't get the result you expected. Well, the good news is that as of C++ 17, this example is guaranteed. If you have
I think that's good. You don't use 11 or 14, so no need. C++ this one. So no need to plus this one, yeah. I use 20.
Then A is guaranteed to be evaluated before B
and I don't use it at all.
However, even in C++ 20, the order that function arguments are evaluated is still not guaranteed left to right.
Huh. I didn't know that, actually. So is that true in C too? NOOB counter plus. Fine, I'll do NOOB counter plus. I didn't know that.
This wouldn't matter much if A, B, and C were pure functions.
I do have pure functions here, though, all the time. So,
but if A, B, and C have side effects, then the order that they're called in might actually make a difference. 22. Using totally unnecessary heap allocations when a stack allocation would have been fine.
True. I use a lot of stack allocations, or static sometimes, or I have my own big heap allocation. My own allocator.
Here we create 2 customer records on the heap. Then we do some work, and then we end up deleting those variables at the end of the function. The question we should ask ourselves is, did this really need to be a heap allocation? There's a good chance it would have been.
You know why this is bad? And you see this a lot in a lot of programs. When this happens a lot in programs, this is why they lag. It's a bunch of allocations happening and deallocations. It's ridiculous.
Fine if we just stack allocated them. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that these objects are too big and you really do want them on the heap. That brings us to number 23, not using unique pointer and shared pointer to do your heap allocations. What happens if an exception gets thrown in the middle here? Then these deletes never occur and the memory is leaked. When you want to make sure that if an exception
this is like such a cherry-picked example. If an exception happens here, your program crashes. Or what type of exception? So he's talking about how the exception here would somehow be recoverable from. So you catch the exception and then you recover from the exception, and therefore you don't delete this because at this point you early return out of the function. True, I guess. Yeah. It doesn't have to be an exception. An early return could cause the prior problem too. Yeah, so terrible coding could... Yeah, and perhaps it finally does it, yeah. He's retarded. Shut the fuck up.
Source is cleaned up, you need to put that cleanup code in a destructor. So why don't we make a class that holds a pointer, and then in its destructor, it deletes that pointer? Well, that's exactly what unique pointer does. You can give it a heap allocated pointer, and when it goes out of scope, it deletes it. A shared pointer, on the other hand, uses a reference counting scheme, similar to what you might have in a language.
Yeah, and the reference count does not get decreased here, I guess.
Like Python. When the reference count hits 0 as the last shared pointer goes out of scope, that shared pointer is in charge of the deletion. This scheme is much more expensive because reference incrementing and decrementing have to be done atomically. That brings us to number 24, construct.
Goodness gracious. Holy shit, C++. Holy moly.
Constructing a...
Hello, are we doing C++ memory stuff? We are testing our C++ skills.
Unique or shared pointer directly instead of using make unique or make shared. Make unique and make shared will pass your arguments directly to the constructor of your object. 25.
Yeah.
Any use of new or delete.
True. Because I don't use them at all. I have one big allocation at the very start of my program, and that's all I do. Never had any memory leaks ever. I had one memory leak over the course of my entire programming history, and that was allocating Vulkan resources. Every time I would push a new resource from the CPU to the GPU, I didn't clear the temporary resource that you would need to allocate for Vulkan so that you could push that to the GPU. I didn't clear that because I didn't know that you needed to do that. Yep.
There's no reason to rewrite functionality
Smart.
that already exists. Here, I'm trying to manage the memory of some resource and then
One in the entire career. I mean, I've been programming C++ for almost 4 years. Actually, 4 years, yeah. It's been a long time, yeah. That's impressive. Yeah, I just don't use new and delete at all. I use one memory allocation at the very beginning of my program. One. And I think that's why I don't have these issues. And if I really have a memory leak, then oftentimes I just run out of array space that I use to allocate for certain things that can grow. The only thing that can grow in my game are arrays. And these arrays have a fixed size, and then I have an assertion happening for when I exceed the bounds of the array. And then usually I catch that, and then I realize that, okay, so I'm growing too much here. What is the reason?
delete it when it's done. That's already what a unique pointer
What will you need to do when you need more than one allocation? I use one big allocation and sub-allocate from that big allocation. And then I track the memory of how much I have used. And therefore, the moment I use too much, I get notified.
does. Don't try to couple the purpose of your class to the idea of ownership of an object. That's a completely
Sorry about this.
Pass your arguments directly to the constructor. There's no reason to rewrite functionality that already exists. Here, I'm trying to manage the memory of some resource and then delete it when it's done. That's already what a unique pointer does. Don't try to couple the purpose of your class to the idea of ownership of an object. That's a completely separate issue. Unique pointer and shared pointer together cover pretty much every valid use of new or delete. Number 26. Any
Read
kind of
from
attempt
file F open. That's a C example. Okay.
to do manual resource management. This is pretty much the same story as with new and to do valid use of new or delete. Number 26. Any kind of attempt to do manual resource management.
Wrong. So wrong. This guy's totally wrong. I don't agree with this point at all. So no. Who's this guy telling me how to use my resources? Have my own memory allocator. Who's this guy telling? What's this guy talking about? Huh? What the fuck is he talking about? Guys, absolutely not. He's not right. He is not right. If I track how much memory I use, what type of memory I use, I can pinpoint exactly where the memory is going. It's just more advanced. It requires more work. So, like, the assumption here is that I'm gonna make a mistake as the program grows, and therefore I cannot track where my memory is allocated anymore, and I lose track of the overview of memory management, and then at some point I leak memory and I don't know where that memory gets leaked. However, he is incorrect in assuming, so what he's assuming here is that I would call new and delete myself here in this case. But that's not how I do it. I call new and delete, I don't even call new and delete, I call malloc and free once. And then I track my own allocations using my own allocator. And therefore here I supply the data for this allocator so I can allocate memory. So that's completely different. This is not a new and delete or malloc and free happening here at all. So like the assumption here is that you have a bunch of new and deletes sprinkled throughout your program here. Do you use fopen though? I do use fopen, yes. You can't get that with new and delete or malloc and free. Also, if you track allocations by type, you can keep certain memory allocations contagious for data locality. Yes, you can. Continuous, yeah. So that's what I have. My arrays are all allocated in one big block of memory, and they're all continuous in memory. Yes. Well, in virtual memory. In physical memory, maybe not so much. because, you know, there's a mapping between virtual and physical memory, but virtual memory is all continuous. Yes.
This is pretty much the same story as with new and delete.
No.
If you find yourself manually freeing, closing, or releasing any kind of
See, I said this, yeah, so no, guys,
resource,
it's not +1.
then look to see if there's a class that does that automatically. By the way, this idea of having resources automatically closed in a destructor
RAII, yeah, resource acquisition, initialization, and what is it? Is initialization. Okay, yeah. Increment counter, no. I can already wait. So this is for everyone that's watching this on YouTube. I could already wait for the downvotes of this. I wonder how many people will get mad in the comments. Tell me in the comments if you're mad. Look at this noob. He never even released a game.
is called
True.
RAII. It stands for Resource Acquisition is Initialization.
Mad about what?
But it really has
Not incrementing the counter, not using the standard library, not using the features that C++ gives me, and completely defining your own way of doing things, and then trying to come across as knowing what you're talking about.
has more to do with ensuring that
Valid point.
resources are released upon destruction. Number 27, thinking that raw pointers are somehow bad. Here's a basic
True! Big true. They are not bad. They are just indexes into memory locations. Like if memory is an array, you're just indexing into the array. It's just a number. That's all.
max function. This function is just reading from the pointers. It doesn't care at all who's in charge of deleting them. If your function doesn't have anything to do with the ownership of the objects in question, then there's no need to use smart pointers.
True.
The convention is that raw pointers don't own what they're pointing.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, finally someone who says it. Yeah, it's not bad at all. It's just that when you're very inexperienced, dangling with these pointers can be dangerous because you might do something wrong. But I think that's the best thing you can do in C++. You do make mistakes and then you learn. Otherwise you don't learn that because the memory is managed by you.
To. And this should not be confused with the constness of the pointer. This add function adds the source into the destination.
Yeah.
But this function is not in charge of the lifetime of either of the pointers.
No, it's not.
Of
It's
course,
just
if you're
reading it.
interoperating with C code is not going to share this convention.
Yep.
A C function might very well return some heap allocated memory to you that it expects you to delete.
I have a point on this. I have seen this a lot in C libraries where it returns you a pointer. What would be awesome is if the C libraries that you use give you the possibility to supply your own allocated memory as a pointer to the function. And then it just returns you the data as well, the pointer back. Or you pass it in, the pointer. That would be another way of, so you don't have to deal with their allocations. Because that happens all the time when I use a C library. And then they track their own allocations and you have to call their own free functions. It's a little bit annoying. Would be cool if these libraries would supply you a way of supplying your own data, your own allocation.
Allocated memory.
You can rewrite your own libraries. Yes, oftentimes these libraries give you the possibility to, when they call their malloc, you can redefine that macro. Usually it's a macro or a function to be what you have as your own malloc, for example. Yes.
To you that it expects you to delete. Be careful though. If you got a pointer with malloc, you need to delete it with free. You can't just let unique pointer try to delete it with the built-in delete.
Interesting.
You can still use a unique pointer though. You just need to define your own deleter, which uses free. Number 28, returning a shared pointer when you aren't sure the object is going to be shared.
I don't
If a
use
caller
that.
got a unique pointer, it's cheap and easy to convert it into a shared pointer if that's what they really need. They could even directly assign the unique pointer return value to a shared pointer. But if you return to them a shared pointer in the first place, the damage would already be done if all they really wanted was a unique pointer. Number 29, thinking that shared pointer is thread safe. The reference counting part of the shared pointer is thread safe.
Yeah.
Here I make a shared resource and
I see. So accessing the shared pointer. Yeah.
pass it
Accessing
off to
not.
two worker threads. Because the reference counting is thread safe, there's no danger that the object will fail to be deleted or be deleted twice. However, it's only the reference counting part that's atomic. This part here, where we're accessing the X variable in the resource, is not atomic and there's no locks.
Yep.
This is a plain old data race of 2 threads trying to modify the same memory. If you want to fix the data race, you need to fix it the way you'd fix any other data race.
Log,
And
yeah.
30, confusing a const pointer with a pointer to const.
Oh, that took me a long time to understand. Yeah, a const pointer means you cannot change, you cannot point. Shit. Wait a minute. Fuck. Const pointer is the data cannot be changed. And then, no wait, fuck. The pointer is const and therefore, fuck, no, I'm, okay, plus, fine. It's one way or the other. God.
The concept of a const pointer versus pointer to const is pretty simple, but a lot of newbies struggle to remember how to tell the difference between them syntactically.
God damn it.
The rule is that const applies to whatever is immediately to its left, unless it's the leftmost.
Const applies to its left. So const applies to the pointer. So I cannot change the pointer here. In this case, I cannot change the value. Yeah.
Thing in which it
Your
applies
music,
to
yeah.
the thing to its right. So here, the const applies to the int, not
Yeah.
to the pointer.
Yes.
Here, the const applies to the int, not to the pointer.
Uh-huh.
And here, const applies to the pointer,
I actually learned something here now. Cool. Thank you. Good. Yeah. Noob corner plus plus.
not to the int. Number 31, ignoring compiler warnings. Ignoring them or turning
I don't do that. I don't do that. He's right. No. No, guys. I don't ignore the compiler warnings. Okay, I do have compiler warnings from free type. But I can't do anything about those. You do? Yeah, some. But yeah, there are some compiler warnings that I... But fine, I do ignore some compiler warnings. It's built. Fine, plus plus. It's okay. Fuck it. There you go. Fuck you.
them off very frequently.
Guys, so listen.
The reason why I do this is because
It makes more sense to ignore them for now, write the code, and then later on clean up the code. Okay, there are some warnings that are bullshit.
Leads to undefined behavior. I hope you enjoyed my list of newbie C++ habits. As always, thank you to my patrons and donors for
Wow,
supporting
man.
me.
Actually, good video.
See you
Cool.
next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So what do we have? What is our score? 8? 7 out of 31? I mean, I would say not bad, you know, not bad, actually. Guys, type in chat your rating. Be honest. Everyone that says 0 gets banned for 5 minutes. Because you're lying. Okay. Yeah. I don't like liars. 5 minutes. Quark type 02. Pretty decent solid 6. You got 6. 0 because I never used anything you did. Okay, 31. Literally 0, 14 years in modern C++, chat. Wait, so really? Vander Dev? 100%? My counter? 1? I didn't know that the evaluation order was fixed in 17. Damn. I had 0 as well. I never used C++. I never will.